Today is Monday, May 2nd, 2016. This is Tom Dillon, the Lifetime Liberal, and this is in reference to Dr. Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times, The Diabetic Economy. Now, right now, the European economy as a whole basically blows. It's been very weak. It's been weak for the last 8 years since what we would refer to as the Great Recession, not depression. And their economy at this particular point in time has now just gotten to the point where the economy itself is greater than what it was before the crisis. But the lagging weakness is still showing up, and showing up with a tremendous amount of human misery that's going on over there. The unemployment rate did top out at 12% over in Europe, but right now it's only at 10%. And remember, we are only at 5%. And of course, when we talk about being at 5%, the Republicans always like to talk about what the real unemployment rate is, those who are underemployed and those who are not even seeking employment because the job market sucks. Yes, but this is just a measure here. So in Europe, it's double what it is in the United States. And should we rest on our laurels? No. Should we continue to strive to get as much of full employment as possible? Yes. But the thing is that one thing that's going on is that interest rates now in Germany are at negative numbers. And critics of this are basically indicating that this is an artificial interest rates. And Dr. Krugman was referring to someone else at the Federal Reserve Board who indicated that no, they're not artificial at all. The investments, the quantitative easing, the cheap money that's being made available by the European Central Bank and by the Federal Reserve is like a diabetic taking insulin, is that the cheap money fights the weakness but does not provide a cure. So it allows things to keep going on for the diabetic, but it does not stop the cause of the diabetes so that the person can live without insulin. Still need the quantitative easing. Now the problem on the economic end of this insulin not providing the cure is that it's just allowing, especially Europe, to just go trudging along. And if we have any type of crisis, let's say another crisis in Greece, if something happens in China, if something, let's say, in the Middle East blows up dramatically, then that could really affect European, and of course would affect the whole world too. And just as an example, Spain, who they're actually considering, something that happened that's gone well over in Spain, their unemployment rate for their youth is still at 45%. So they're just struggling. They're just moving along. And the cheap money that is in there is to help maintain. It is not a cure. So the question is, what is a cure? And here and over there, in the investors are basically crying that there should be public spending. Even Carl Icahn, just the other day, basically indicated he is for Trump, but he firmly believes that there should be more public spending. And why should there be more public spending? Number one is that money is so cheap, you can borrow it at such an inexpensive rate that you can finance so many more public spending projects because the money is so cheap. And of course, that type of stimulus has a tremendous ripple effect throughout the economy. So once you start building something where you hadn't been building before, in terms of finance, in terms of transportation, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of consumer spending, that just has that ripple effect. And that's what we need. That's what Obama wanted in the stimulus. Remember the original stimulus, which Dr. Krugman said wasn't even half of what it should have been, and portions of it were even tax cuts, and it went into the economy in a couple stages, then that's all gone. We still need a tremendous amount of public spending. And of course, in Europe, based on the way Europe is, we should actually be pretty happy to see what's going on. But at the same time, we must be realistic, is that even though countries like Germany really don't want to do that type of thing, that's very similar to what's going on with our GOP, is that the GOP is just about austerity. There is all this money out there that's crying for investment, and they're complaining about the deficit, which is something that is easily maintained with public spending and investment and etc. This is how you get out of these types of things. So in essence, our friends, the Republicans, are basically know how to get out of this. But if it did, that would mean more people would be employed, the economy would have an uptick, and guess what? Obama would get credit for it, so they don't want it. And of course, this is what has been going on for years, where the Republicans and the conservative economists have been crying that we're going to have hyperinflation, that our interest rates are going to skyrocket because of all of this quantitative easing, because of all of this stuff by the Federal Reserve and also over with the European Central Bank. But what has happened since 2009? Interest rates have virtually been unchanged. They've been at dramatically low rates. But what have we done with public spending, public investment? Nothing. All right. So what's really holding the United States back from further economic growth is the intransience of our sisters and brothers on the Republican side, who don't want Obama to get any credit for the fact that more Americans will be employed. And that I would consider immoral. But that's what's going on, and maybe it can change come November.